half mile.
Rough half mile, and it'll probably be about 34 degrees in the green flag. I mean, it gets cold.
It does get cold, but that's the thing. You know, I've watched it duel the last couple of years. Just it's always been on my bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to make it down there sometime. I have to do it. If I'm not registering a car, I'm going to go sit in the stands and watch.
Sure. Well, even then, it would still be a great.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I'm going to take my sleeping bag that I used to climb Mount Everest because it's going to get colder than hell there.
Right.
But whatever. you know. Hopefully they got slot machines in the stands. But anyways, 28 cars, rough, dry, slick track. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a crazy race for those people that actually get to go and check it out. So I did a little research during the week. Since 2002, going back to 2002, coming into this year's event, how many West Coast guys have won this race?
0.
Hang on. What do you define West Coast as?
I'm talking West Coast.
Like
California, Idaho, Montana, Oregon,
Washington, California.
Left coast.
Yeah. Let's talk about the
left coast?
The Western Seaboard.
Yeah,
Western Seaboard. California, Oregon, Washington.
I still think 0.
I'm going to say 2.
2?
I have no idea. I'll throw a number 3 out there just for throwing the number.
1.
One person?
1. Dave Bird in 2002. There's a name you know from the asphalt.
Yeah,
Dave Bird from San Jose. Since 2002, it has been Eddie Martin. Okay. Well, let's see here. You go back to 03 was David Murray Jr. 04, Johnny the Jet Sathop. There's a name we all know from Nebraska. Okay. 05, we're looking at Jeremy Payne, who won it in 2005, 2006, 2012, and 2013. He's won it 4 times.
That's if he goes again this year, that's a guy that knows around that track.
Well, and you're a modified guy. You know the name Jeremy Payne.
Of course I know the name.
Come on.
Not just a modified guy.
2010, 2011, and 2014, your boy Terry Phillips.
There you go.
My boy.
Well, he's associated with the GRTs.
Hang on. So between Payne and
seven times between the two.
And you know what chassis they share?
Yes. Or 6 times. I'm sorry, 6 times between the two.
You want to say it?
No.
He doesn't need to. They know.
Everybody knows. If you know Terry Phillips, you know what he drives.
He's always in that style of car, and I'm going to say he's always in that GRT. Reason why is just because he likes the way it feels. He likes the way the chassis and stuff.
Wait a second, though. Those GRTs here they're GRT by Phillips. So they're not just a GRT.
They are a GRT by Phillips.
They are.
They are different.
And see, this is the thing, too, is this is the reason why a lot of people kind of look at GRT as not just one entity, because you have GRT by this guy, GRT by that guy, GRT by this guy, GRT by that guy.
It's the same way with Shaw.
Well, Shaw.
And that is true. And, but you go off to some of these other, small-town makers. I'm just going to throw a TRE out there because of Kenny Miller. We were just talking about him. It's TRE by TRE.
Right.
It's literally by Steve Holzcamper. That's it.
TRE, PCD, Evolution, the Twisted Motorsports Evo.
Mm-hmm. It's by one maker.
Exactly.
And so a lot of people and stuff, it's like, okay, so what's the difference between a GRT by this guy and a GRT by that guy and a GRT by this guy? And I'm going to give it to Joel. What is the difference? Why have 27 makers of one style chassis?
I don't think there's 27, but
there is not. There is one jig. All those cars, anything that's stamped GRT comes off of one jig.
Okay, so
if it's a late model, it comes off the late model jig. If it's a GRT modified, it comes off the modified jig.
Okay, but you have not just one guy at GRT shop. You have multiple shops around stating GRT by this guy and GRT by that guy.
Correct.
So what if they sat there and they put the tube, say a down tube, an inch forward more than another tube? Same car? That makes
everything that is stamped GRT comes off the same jig.
Okay. So what they do basically is it's location of rear ends.
I wouldn't even
go that
far.
A little bit of front end geometry. I mean, they're really the difference is pretty minute.
And if you look at it, I mean, and this is what I know is that when you buy a GRT by Phillips or a Phillips GRT, that car comes as a full roller. You put your seat in, you put your transmission in, you put your motor in, and go. That's the only way to buy a GRT by Phillips.
Why is that?
I don't know. You'll have to ask Terry.
Terry,
He's honest.
if you're listening, 360-910-6008, Northwest Dirt News will gladly take your phone call. I'm sure I'm not the only one out there on the Mike Sweer chat line. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people popping up going, da-da-da. I mean, we appreciate your phone calls. We appreciate your emails. Your emails at moxiemedia2016@gmail.com. We read your emails every single day. Trust me, there's a ton of them. Some of them are crazy in hell to read. Other ones are very funny and informative. But we welcome your guys' calls on the Crockers Cars call-in line, and, of course, your emails every single day.
Right. So going back to the winners list since 2002, Dave Bird, the only West Coast guy to win it. Okay. Here's where all the other winners have come from. Amarillo, Texas, Eddie Martin. David Murray Jr., Oberlin, Kansas. Sathoff from Beatrice, Nebraska. Jeremy Payne from Springfield, Missouri. Terry Phillips from Springfield, Missouri. And Lucas Schott from Chatfield, Minnesota. You're talking about some guys traveling to this big deal here. The duel has really, really grown into, and 20 years really isn't not that big of a period to grow a race. This thing, because I think is in Vegas, and it's a $7,000 payout, really draws a lot of people.
It draws a lot of people.
Well, exactly. But you also look at the, you win your heat race. There's an extra $777 in your pocket.
Right. For a heat race.
Right.
For your heat race.
But if you're towing from Chatfield, Minnesota, you might pay for your fuel one way.
Well, but here's the other thing, too. What goes more, your fuel bill or going to your sponsor and saying, hey,
well, right,
I won the duel in the desert. Give me money.
Well, and see, that's where the credibility and stuff gets into is that is when you start talking about duel in the desert, everybody in racing, everybody in the modified, a sponsor, when they sponsor your car, they know what you're doing. They know.
So
especially,
let me ask you a question since we're talking about the duel in the desert. Do you consider this, and I think I probably do, the biggest modified event besides the Super Nationals in Boone?
do I think it is?
Would you consider it would you consider it?
Absolutely.
Nothing's going to beat the Super Nationals in Boone, Iowa. We know that.
Well,
that's a 30.
yeah.
That's a 30-car main event. They start 3 wide.
Right.
Yeah, and they go 3 wide 90% of the time. It's just
Exactly.
that's the way it is.
You will
behind the
not beat
Boone Super Nationals, this duel in the desert, that's getting all this attention in the last, especially the last 10 years, it's really blown up. Would you consider that the number 2 modified event in the country?
Absolutely.
Would you?
Absolutely.
I would say
The reason why I say that is because location.
Well, right. That
Okay,
and
yeah.
you're
So
drawing
when-
competition from all over the country. But you're not looking at what's Boone Nationals payout.
I don't know.
You're
off
not
the top
looking
of
at
my head.
$50,000 to win here.
No, but
really,
I mean-
considering $7,000 really isn't a whole bunch of money.
No, it's not. But it's the atmosphere of where the race and what it draws into it is what makes it big. It could be $777.77,
But
whatever.
because it's Vegas.
But because it's Vegas, and who's all who coming? It's just like Bakersfield.
Right.
Look at the who we had coming.
Right.
We
In
already-
our region, it was a pretty big deal.
Right.
Now we've
Exactly.
Now, if you go
Yeah.
back east and everything else, they have their big races and everything else.
Right.
UMT, USRA, that type of stuff back there. We don't talk about because we focus a lot on IMCA. Reason why is because we're regional bound.
Mm-hmm.
Going more into Moxie Media and going more into, exploring more of what we do in the media, we're branching out into the USRA, MR, all that type of stuff. USRA, we're branching out to more of that. But right now, we are focused on IMCA. IMCA does a lot for this region, does a lot for our drivers, and does a lot for us.
Well, and that's something going back to earlier this in the season when Brody Pompey called in, and he's running the UMP rules. And you look at the UMP rules versus IMCA, and they couldn't be any more different.
Oh, exactly.
Engine rules and suspension rules and tire rules.
And then you look at it, USRA is right in the middle of them. But
Right.
I think, personally, for an IMCA, I look at it 2 ways. And I think dual is where you can mix it up as a driver, being an amateur driver. You can mix it up with the professional drivers in Terry Phillips, Jeremy Payne, the big guns. That's where you can mix up with them, test your skills, see where you're at. Do I think it's the biggest event? It's the most publicized on this side of the Mississippi. But if you look at it, if you want to talk about it, I would say it's a tie between this and the Dakota Modified Tour that's an IMCA tour and possibly our Speed Week out here.
Okay, so
Because you look at the skill level that goes to this. This is pro drivers. You go to the pretty much the amateur side. Granted, some pro guys go to the Dakota Tour, but you look at it like our Speed Week, for instance. 6 tracks.
7 nights.
eight nights.
8 nights.
8 nights. That's right. But the level of competition you're getting California's best, Oregon's best.
Well,
some
look at
killer drivers out
Colin Chadwick.
You got Chadwick.
Chadwick has never ran our Speed Weeks, and he destroyed it this
won
year.
6 out of 7 races.
Destroyed it. No, he won 5 out of 7.
Or 5 out of
5
7.
out of
He
7.
destroyed Speed Weeks. He's a California native. He goes to some of these big races. He goes,
Exactly.
he does Antioch, Chachilla, Merced.
He's all over.
He's all over.
You start talking the talent level. I mean, the talent level that you see at the Modified Speed Week out here in the Pacific Northwest, you're pulling the best from California. Chadwick, Stanford, Travis Perry comes out from
Ken Schrader.
Dakota.
Ken Schrader's been out here twice.
Hogue has ran.
Bobby Hogue, Troy Folger.
Yep.
You've got Jesse Williamson, Dustin Cady, Justin Dittman. You start talking
Weinbarger. You've got some.
Kyler Moore.
This,
Craig Moore. You have some
So-
heavy hitters that come out there, and you look at the mean talent level between everyone in that at Speed Week. I would say is as good as Duels in the Desert. The thing
Okay,
with Duel is
and you
it's-
can do that without having 200 cars in attendance.
exactly.
Okay,
Because
so
when you've got a field of say you got 70 modified to show up for Speed Week. I'm just
Exactly.
saying 70. That's just round
Right.
numbers. You've got 60 of them that are really, really, really good, and 10 that aren't too bad.
Exactly. And then
You
you
know.
look at it, $7,777. I'll bet I could do some research, but I would bet that Chadwick pulled off more than that at a Speed Week.
Oh, I bet it's $1,000 to win each night.
$1,000 to win plus a $3,000 or $2,000
There's
for
$7
champ-
grand
for
right
champion.
there.
for the champion.
Plus you got to figure out what his cost was. Race fuel,
Well,
tow.
don't worry about that.
I'm
We're talking about
just talking
winnings.
about the
Just
purse.
talking about winnings.
Okay,
Just talking about the
So
winnings
the
he
5
took.
wins and the $2,000 championship
Because
purse,
the
whatever,
most
that's
you
$7 grand right there.
the most you can pull out of Vegas, just looking at here for an A mod, is $8,400, $8,500.
That's if you win everything.
If you win a heat race on Thursday or Friday
right.
Transfer to the A's.
and transfer and go to the big show and win the big show. I'm not trying to knock Duel in the Desert. Don't get me wrong.
No, I no one's taking it
So,
like that.
okay, so
I think that
this
is the most marketed race this side of the Mississippi.
Oh,
Okay, so
yeah,
this
absolutely.
is my question stuff. You talk about Dakotas, nationals and all that type of stuff. Okay, so you talk about who all is coming to Vegas for Duel Desert. East Coast guys, Midwest guys, Central, states guy. You got guys from all over. That's the reason why there's 280 or 200 plus cars that come. That's the only reason why 70 or 60 come for Speed Weeks is because
Well, it's a
it is-
regional deal too.
It's a regional deal. It's publicized California, Montana, Oregon, Washington, Idaho. Okay? Duel in the Desert is promoted all lower 48 to come to the biggest race modified
well,
at the end of the
it
season.
draws
Exactly.
Canada drivers.
I
too.
mean, you're going to have Jason Bolio, probably Chris
Right.
Bolio show up. Sir Lawrence O'Connor's probably going to be there
Right.
in the 27A.
So that's the reason why when he asked the question and stuff, do you think besides the Boone Nationals, do you think this is the top, this is second best? To me personally, it is. The reason why is because we're not just dealing with our West Coast guys, our regional guys, because we know we race against these guys all the time. Or I shouldn't say we. Those guys race against those guys all the time. Okay?
Right.
We announce those guys. We know these guys all the time. Now you're bringing in top hitters and stuff from the East Coast,
House
Carolinas,
cars,
house
chassis,
car,
yeah.
all these guys. So you're bringing in a third, maybe even half of the people that we haven't seen all year long, now to one spot racing against the half that we have seen. So you get basically the duel. You get this duel and this duel.
It's
East
an
Coast,
East versus West.
Yeah, East Coast,
Right.
West Coast rule.
So here's an interesting thing, Joel. I'll have you research, and maybe we'll have to talk about it next week. Looking at the winners list, let's talk about how many drivers. Okay, so this winners list that we have here, who runs IMCA, who runs USRA, who runs UMP. Find out what drivers are winning.
I can already tell you one thing that most of those drivers have in common.
Go ahead.
I believe everyone except for one, possibly,
they race 40 races a year.
604 crate
On the half mile.
So let's get into this.
on a half mile.
Let's get into this because
on
this
a rough,
this-
slick half mile.
this was
Well,
a question
and
that
that's-
was given to me the other day. What is the difference between the crate and the open motor? Because some people really, really are still stuck on this open motor deal. Other people, this crate deal. Is it an IMCA rule? Yes and no. IMCA states if you have a crate, 602, 604, it has to be sealed motor. If you have an open motor, do what you want to do. But just like what is